If LSU goes 7-5, or even if they're lucky, 8-4, Brian Kelly will be the culprit either way.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you once again for stopping in to check out the Portal Podcast, your daily spot to get your recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are brought to you by Game Time, where if you need tickets, it's the spot for you. New customers right now, if you download the app, create an account, you can get $20 off your first purchase just by using code LOCKEDONCollege. We're going to be talking about all the different things going on in college football with the programs that have a chance to make a run at the playoff and how the portal has impacted them. In the middle of the show, we're going to talk about the portal in terms of how it has also messed up a lot of teams and some of the things that go on. But to get to that point, and this is the key, coaches that don't use the portal properly, you take nothing else from this show, we're going to start with it, it will go wrong very quickly. And Brian Kelly is the example today, as he has bypassed the opportunity to recruit arguably as good an area for an in-state dominant program in all of college football to get over the top. He's done well, but not well enough. He's missed out on some Houston kids that he should have. He's missed out on some Louisiana kids that he should have. Some Southern Mississippi, even some kids in Arkansas. The home base for LSU, even if you just miss one or two kids a year, it can be magnified. And here's the basis of that. The hardest position in the transfer portal to get quality players in any form of quantity is offensive line. And it is not close. Even defensive tackle, most teams know they're not going to get a lot. You'd have to bulk some guys up from D-end, et cetera. There's ways around it. But offensive line is a long-term process. Even NFL players are constantly evolving as offensive linemen. It is that hard. But LSU, they had a great line last year for pass protection, and four of those guys moved on, including Will Campbell, who ended up being the fourth overall pick by the New England Patriots. Emory Jones was a third-round pick by the Baltimore Ravens. They lost four really good players. In the year before, they lost a tackle because he wasn't going to play because of Jones and Campbell. He transferred to Tennessee. He's now starting. But LSU didn't recruit quite as well as they should have up front, and it's killing them. Look at the game last night against A&M as an example. Even when they ran the ball a little bit in the first half, they didn't do it enough, by the way, it still was a little bit less than it needed to be in critical moments. They can run the ball pretty well in between the 20s. They don't run it efficiently enough down in the red zone. And again, part of that is play calling. That's still on Brian Kelly too. And it's because they can't get much push up front. A&M's susceptible to running right at them. They're really good at rushing the passer. They're really good at that. But if you scheme it up right and you execute, you can definitely run the ball on them. And LSU's got the talent to do it, but they still should have had a couple more guys on the roster to prepare in case Emory Jones left early, in case Will Campbell left early. They were not prepared. That's on Brian Kelly and how you recruit and balance it with the portal. He missed. And then to try to make up for it, he went into the portal this year, and they certainly did a good job. Hats off. Clearing up some of the defensive issues. They'd missed a little bit there, to say the least, too. Second year from Matt House as defensive coordinator, all of that. That's fair. But they didn't spend any money on the offensive line to go out and get elite players. Again, I know there's not a ton, but that's the position you put yourself in. And maybe, I don't know, but maybe LSU's like, well, what we're going to spend compared to what we're going to get, let's just go all in with receiver. Let's go all in with the opportunity to fix the defense and see where it goes. But if you remember, Brian Kelly also said we're going to go out and win a national title this year. He was pretty boisterous about it. Do they look like a national title contender to you after giving up 49 points in Death Valley to Texas A&M? Because they sure don't to me. You must balance recruiting, especially when you've got an easy base like LSU. It's one of the easiest jobs in college football with the portal. Pretty good recruiting, but that's not good enough at LSU. Harlan Berry, by the way, just as a this is such a random stat. Averaged 7 yards a carry last night in the first half. Shout out to Mass Moscona. Matt brought this up on his pod. I listened to it. Locked on LSU. If you haven't listened to it, his rant afterwards really wasn't rant. It was somber, which tells you something. He's given up on Kelly, in my opinion, but I'll let Matt define that in his upcoming pods, which I'm sure will be good. Barry got 1 carry after halftime. One of the reasons, again, they don't trust their own offensive line. Well, you're the ones that devised it. This is Kelly's 4th year at Death Valley. The Bayou Bengals should not be in this spot. They've got really talented young offensive linemen. They do. They're just playing too early. You had a starting offensive lineman out, et cetera, et cetera. You have to prepare for those things. You're LSU. Even though you have Nussmeier, who's a very talented quarterback, guy's banged up and he's a warrior, it's not enough. And when you trot that defense back out there on the field against the quality A&M offense over and over again, eventually they're going to break. Punt return didn't help either. But still, LSU let that defense back on the field because the offensive line couldn't pass protect consistently enough. They didn't try to run the ball enough. That's partially Kelly's fault. And again, it's about roster construction. They relied on the portal too much and too late. They couldn't get the guys they needed out of the portal to help them on this year's team. If they had a really good offensive line, and again, I know they had guys turn pro early. That's unfortunate. But Kelly's the one that said, hey, we're going to go out get the national title, blah, blah, blah. He's the one who made those statements. That's on him. I'm sure you'd like to take those back now. A little late. That being stated, how do you fix it? The only thing you can do now is work towards next season. And who knows what's going to happen because you've got a junior, senior, 5th-year senior roster. Dwayne and several of those other guys, are they going to be around? No, probably not. Like any guy that's a junior, that's eligibility, they're gone. Perkins is gone. It's like they're going to lose a ton. Nuss is gone. They will have the linemen. Harlan Berry will be back. They'll have some players. Caden Durham will probably be back. Trades Green. I mean, they've got some talent, but they don't fix that line. And they still need to bring in like 1 or 2 guys this offseason. And it's going to cost a bundle. You have to do that. And he missed. So this is a microcosm of what's going on in college football. And I'm going to go over a list that I have over here on my left over the next couple of days. It's just under 30 teams that are either A, in the playoff, B, have already been in the playoff last year, or some capacity. Where are they? Like, what would their top 3 needs as their base today going into next season? Let me give a little hint to everybody out there that's on a college staff or anybody watching this, because I know some do. O-line is on all but like 4 of my like 27 or whatever it is. It's 27, 28 schools I've got on my list as a top 3 need. LSU skipped out on it after screwing up O-line recruiting. Again, the kids they've recruited are good, but they didn't recruit consistently enough. Freshmen and redshirt freshmen at the SEC level, especially at tackle, every now and then you can get away with that, but not very often. Will Campbell's not walking back through the door for the Bayou Bengals. Don't let that be you. Recruit O-linemen every single year. Pray for the best if you're behind the 8 ball with the portal, because there's not going to be much walking into that, especially at tackle, because then you're going to get slaughtered when you play against teams like A&M that have legit pass rushers. LSU should be in the playoff. There's no way they're going to make it now. They're going to lose at least 1 more game, finish at best 8-4. With an NFL quarterback. It's incredible. And Trades Green, by the way, what a freak that kid is. He's not a receiver, but he's a 250-pound receiver. That kid's got a long NFL future ahead of him too. So lots of problems there. When we come back, I want to talk about the problem that I've started to devise here and discuss. Why do teams avoid O-line recruiting or not do it the right way? How can you make that work with the transfer portal? That is next, right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. College football is absolutely crazy right now. The A&M game against LSU being a great example of that. And it couldn't be more exciting. All the games, the tailgates, all the energy in the stands. There's nothing quite like college football. But let's be real. Getting tickets can feel a little bit more than like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices that change at checkout. It's not a whole lot of fun. That's why I use Game Time, literally, to get tickets, because it gives the advantage back to me. a fan, just like you. No surprise hidden fees above all else. So when you go into the app on Game Time on your phone or your tablet, you click on the price and that ticket, you can see your seat view right there. And it's the same price at the beginning and the end. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the app for $20 off. You can use the term Locked On College. That's promo code Locked On College for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day, each and every day, right here on Locked On the Portal. Appreciate you stopping in. I am Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst, and we are to the time of year when the portal is about to get popping. And that's what I want to talk about right now. This is the baseline episode for everything that's getting ready to happen. Absolutely everything. College football is about to have more firings. You know, we've had Napier out, James Franklin, etc. Virginia Tech's open. We have Oklahoma State. We have Colorado State. We have Oregon State. We got all kinds of different jobs that have opened, but we got several more. And even with that, we have players getting ready to hit the portal. And this is the warning episode for everybody. I don't care who you root for. Do your own research. Do your own research. And specifically, this is something I harp on a little bit in the spring and summer when the mainstay of the recruiting process is going on, but it's important on the back end too. If your team is going into the portal and their number one need is offensive line, don't come crying to me saying, I don't understand when it doesn't go well next season. There will not be 20%, and that's probably even a high number, probably not more than 10% of the needed offensive tackles, just tackle alone, not even counting interior offensive line, for the teams that need offensive linemen. Too many teams bypass on O-line, at least in numbers. A lot of it is difficult to project. O-line is really hard because a lot of the young men develop after they get to college, like they're still growing into their bodies. I see these recruiting classes with 2 offensive linemen. I see these recruiting classes with 3, and the year before they took 2. In a 2-year cycle, minimum, whatever program you root for needs to grab 8 offensive linemen. Minimum. And of those 8, 3 better be tackles. And I mean pure offensive tackles, 6'5 plus, etc. If your team can't get them, I understand. But they're not going anywhere. There's a reason they go top 5 in the draft. Will Campbell, young man I just mentioned a couple of times in the prior segment at LSU. 3 and out for the Bayou Bengals. He was the rare exception. He's out of the Monroe, Louisiana area. Great football player, highly ranked. I thought he was the best tackle in the country coming out. Ends up being the first tackle off the board after year 3. Those kind of guys are hard to replace. But you always have to be looking for that guy every year because they can leave early. You have to expect that. And when you don't, just look no further than LSU. So if you go into the portal and you're lucky enough to get a stud tackle, there'll be like 1 or 2 if you're lucky. But on my list, I've got like 27 schools here. Tennessee, Notre Dame, maybe Penn State, maybe 1 or 2 others could get away with not going after, and I mean going all out to try to get an elite offensive lineman, and most of them would take an offensive tackle in a heartbeat. There just aren't enough of them. But again, it starts with recruiting. Is your team taking, on average, 4 or more offensive linemen every year? And to put it in real perspective, over the last 5 seasons, counting the freshmen that are currently on campus around college football, here's a pretty good anecdote. The Georgia Bulldogs, they're kind of known for offensive line. They signed 27 offensive linemen over a 5-year span, more than anybody else. Does anybody discourage the thought that Kirby is conservatively one of college football's top 3 offensive line gurus in terms of how he's run his program? He's a DB by trade, but like how he focuses on it. He took 27, and they're still having problems, even at the level that Georgia recruits. They did everything right, and it still hasn't worked perfectly. There's injuries, etc. There's so many unknowns. That's how hard this is. So if you're not using the portal this year because of O-line, you're one of those very few schools. Tennessee's got a young O-line. Maybe they don't take one. Maybe. Notre Dame's got one of the youngest lines in the country. Maybe. All those things aside, most schools are in a bad spot. And you don't want to be in the spot that Brian Kelly's in right now at LSU, because I'm just going to bring it up. His contract and his buyout, it's $53 million. There's some conversations going on, from what I understand, that are pretty awkward amongst LSU boosters. They don't want to pay that, because all told, with assistants and bringing in a new staff, that's $100 million probably or more. Boy, that hurts to even say out loud. And I don't even root for LSU. I just follow them. You don't want your school to be in that spot. It can happen quicker than any other position on the field than O-line, because even if one of those guys out of 5 is struggle busing against a quality defense, you can see what happens. Ask Garrett Nussmeier. You have to recruit O-line, or else the portal is going to be a problem. Now, while I'm on the subject of the portal, here's the other thing. This is the first year for the one portal cycle. In case you did not know, it is January the 2nd through the 16th, just in general, like this. Anybody can get in regardless of coaching changes. There is no spring window. None. With that being stated, that means if you got a quarterback problem, running back, whatever it is what it is after spring ball. There may be somebody that's still available at that point, probably not who you want, because they got in January, haven't found a home, but there's going to be more guesswork. We're going to find out which coaches really know their rosters and who has not just good, but elite team chemistry. In the transfer portal, you could bring in a couple of guys, make it work, but there are very few that hit winning with the portal. Indiana's kind of the exception, and that's an asterisk, because when they were at James Madison, they brought in 13 guys last year. Several of those players, including Aiden Fisher, the All-American linebacker for the Hoosiers, is still returning. They knew a bunch of those guys. And still, Indiana's done a better job of evaluating it than any other program in college football. Hats off to the Hoosiers. But you don't want to be in that boat. Teams that are loading up above 15 players in the portal any given year, which is about 95% of the teams in the FBS, it's going to be hard to not just make the playoff, but make a run. You can make it there. Arizona State did it last year. Indiana did. But teams that win it, again, it starts with high school recruiting, consistency, and it starts with the offensive line. If you do not recruit the offensive lineman well, it's going to be a problem, because you're going to get stuck in this boat because of the portal. Again, there's one window. There's no extra, okay, we're going to evaluate after spring. Maybe we take one. There's no more of that. Do you trust your staff right now, whatever team you root for, with their roster in developing, A, B, admitting where they're at, and then finally understanding the numbers? LSU didn't. They should have taken a couple more linemen. They didn't. Look where they're at. They got some really talented young guys. They just got forced to play too early. Weston Davis and those guys, they're all good. It's just too early. It's part of football. Now the question becomes, who's next to be in that boat? Because LSU just squandered not one, but honestly, 2 NFL quarterbacks, no college football playoff run. It's going to be a really interesting portal cycle. And final point on the portal, before I go in just to my rundown on what happened with college football and a few of my overall thoughts on it. Look, it's going to be super expensive because of the one portal window. LSU chose to go defense, etc. Any team, and I'm going to call them out when we get to this point, we got to get to the backside of this. Any team that I think needs offensive linemen and skimped on it, this guy right here is going to be happy to raise his hand and say, y'all need to listen to this. Well, you do that too with your own team. If you're a booster, I'd advise you bringing up in the booster club, hey, if we're going to donate here, let's make sure the O-lines are good. For not just this year, but for the future. Let's make sure we got balanced classes, fill them out if somebody transferred, have a transfer come in, all of that. And it's going to be expensive. But teams that don't in the portal this year, because there's that one cycle, prices are going to go up. It's going to be a who's who of really trying to spend. And it's going to be fascinating. I don't know, outside of like Texas Tech, Oregon, Ohio State, some of the big names, who's really going to spend. But we'll find out real quick which teams can separate, because the ones that don't are probably going to take a step back from making a run at the college football playoff next season and beyond. When we come back, college football playoffs, in my thoughts about who's really making use of the portal in this year, we're going to talk about that right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making a late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up today and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's talk about college football and the playoff for this year, specifically 2025, heading into the winter season in January as we turn to the new year with the playoff race. I'm going to give a handful of teams and just give an example to try to kind of summarize what I've been talking throughout the show about LSU. When you miss on high school recruiting, and again, specifically O-line, that's the easiest barometer, it's probably going to bite you because you can only make up so much with the portal. So think about the teams at the top of college football right now. Ohio State and Indiana, in my opinion, are the two best. Ohio State, for the most part, recruits in-house. They do as good a job of evaluating and developing as anybody. I don't think that's really all that difficult to figure out. They're probably the best program in the country. They've got a couple of guys on their O-line depth chart that have been transfers over the last few years. But by and large, it's in-house. They circumvent any issues with the portal, but that's it. It's not a priority. That's smart. Indiana, they're unique. They're the one team that is kind of the outlier. Again, they took 13 guys in 2024 from James Madison alone. But that staff came from James Madison. They bring in Pat Coogan from Notre Dame, somebody that was going to be a fifth-year senior, had started at Notre Dame several times. He even played against Indiana the year before. Really good player. So they circumvent. Look at some of the other teams. A&M, homegrown offensive lineman. Miami, for the most part, they got one guy that's a portal guy. Brockermeyer came over from TCU. Homegrown offensive lineman. Alabama, same thing. Over and over and over again, you're seeing this same trend. The teams that have kind of separated and went up, that's what they've done for the most part. Notre Dame, they don't have a transfer portal offensive lineman on their depth chart. Oregon, they got a tackle that's pretty good player out of the portal, but again, they circumvent it. These are the teams that are also going to make a run in the playoff. If I had to do a power poll right now, and mine's different than everybody else's, I'd have Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, A&M 3. I'd probably, boy, this is tough. Either Notre Dame or Ole Miss would be 4 to 5. I don't trust Alabama's run game because for whatever reason, they don't try to run the ball. It doesn't make any sense. Georgia's inconsistent. They're the wild card. And then Oregon would be somewhere in there. But again, these are all the same thing. These are the teams that recruit O-line really well, minus Indiana. They've done a phenomenal job. Somebody's going to get their dissertation on how Indiana's come together with their roster. It's been amazing. But everybody else, it's homegrown talent with just a pinch of the transfer portal. And then you have several other teams that it's just hard to say how it's going to go. Georgia Tech, they've done a little bit through the portal here and there, especially defensively here and there. But they're homegrown, and they've got a great O-line coach as their head coach who helps out. And they've got an offensive coordinator in Buster Faulkner that understands what Coach Key wants and how that roster works best with Haynes King, who's one of the toughest SOBs I've ever seen, and it's still O-line driven. Do you see how this works? Because Georgia Tech's defense is nowhere near as talented as Georgia's or Bama's or Notre Dame's or Ohio State's. But they're going to be in the playoff. They're O-line driven. For the most part, those are kids on their roster they've gotten from high school. And again, they've circumvented. They're a team that might make the playoff that probably shouldn't. But they were smart on how they did their business in roster management. That's really incredible. Here are a few examples just to kind of put it in perspective on what I think teams need. And this is just my top 3 positions for each of these teams. No particular order. And I'm not saying they need like a wholesale change in any of these positions. Just a shout out so I don't get called out on this. Let's just use a few examples. Michigan. They lost some key linemen over the last couple of years. They're still good up front, But I got them with O-line as one of their top 3 needs for this offseason because they need one guy. Like they need another dominant guy to come in. They're going to lose Justice Hayes probably. He'll probably end up in the NFL. Heck of a back. And they obviously need receivers. That's not a newsflash. Ohio State, they need like that one guy to come in from the portal probably if they can get him. They could survive and make another run at a title next year without an offensive lineman. But it's certainly a priority. Running back, definitely. They've got a lot of juniors and seniors on their defensive line. They could probably use another really good D lineman. But outside of maybe Notre Dame or maybe Texas, there's only a few teams. They could be one of the teams that doesn't go over 10 portal players this year. It's possible. Penn State, this is going to be the year that it changes. They've got several offensive linemen. They've recruited it well. Maybe they bypass it. They should probably hit it. D-tackle definitely needs help. Quarterback, possibly. Wide receiver, that's a really weird deal. That roster is going to be interesting next year. And Penn State might take a pretty big step back over a 2-3 year period, but that is still a great job. If the right coach ends up there, Penn State will be back in the playoff quicker than you think. Notre Dame, it's the only team towards the top that I have for next year, kind of like my preliminary poll, that doesn't even need a portal player from the offensive line. They've got like out of their top 10 guys, like 9 or 10 of them back, like almost everybody or every player. Depends on how a couple guys go on where they head to the draft. And they're loaded. But they still need D-tackle help because they're going to lose multiple guys. They're going to lose Malachi Fields, the big boundary receiver. And surprisingly, this is rare at Notre Dame, they're going to lose Eli Raridon to the draft. They could probably use a tight end. Most of the other spots on the roster, Freeman and his staff, Marcus Freeman's done a great job. They've really hit it. Indiana, I would be remiss if I didn't bring them up. Again, this is an amazing job. I'm going to do a podcast this week with my guy Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers talking about how they have won more than anybody else with the portal, but they still have needs after this year. Fernando Mendoza will probably turn pro. Might have to hit the portal, hit quarterback again. Offensive line, Pat Coogan, amongst others, will be gone. And then wide receiver. You're not going to really replace Surratt. Is Cooper going to be gone? That'll be really interesting. One more, just because I think it's a really interesting conversation. That's USC. They've gotten better in the trenches, and that's been their problem. But I still think O-line and D-line, not in terms of just volume, but more specifically for the Trojans, they need to hit on a couple of elite guys. You see this trend, and that's why I said earlier, it's going to be super high, especially for offensive linemen. They're pretty good at running the ball, and they're pretty good at pass protection. But are they elite? And they've got a great recruiting class coming in, offensive and defensive line. They're doing really good. But are they elite for next year? Maeva has another year. And they're going to lose Mekhi Lemon, and yes, because of him being gone, maybe Jacoby Lane as well. They need to hit receiver as well. But that still starts with the offensive line. If Maeva's not protected, whoever's the replacement for those stud receivers, and they're both really good, is not going to get the ball as not even close to as much as they should. O-line. This trend, as I said from the outset of the show, LSU is the microcosm of it, but we've got a problem across college football, to be honest. And I picked on Brian Kelly. He should know better, but there are a lot of other teams that should have too. USC should never be in the position they were in prior to this year. And they did take a big step forward, but USC's not in a spot where they can sit there and say, you know what? We're a dominant offensive line right now. They're good. They're not great. At SC, that should be the answer once out of 10 years. And this has been the best they've been the last few years. So there are a lot of programs beyond LSU that have made mistakes on how they recruited, especially locally. You talk about an easy recruiting ground. They're in Los Angeles. Doesn't get much better than that. So to that end, there are a lot of other teams, and I've got my list that I'm still working on. But for the most part, again, outside of Tennessee, Notre Dame, and just a few others, just about everybody needs O-line in the portal this year. Don't allow your team, if you're a booster, to go down the Brian Kelly path and not take that extra offensive lineman in every class. If you can take 5 every year, do it. You won't be in the same spot that Garrett Nussmeier was in last night and on his rear end. What they have, like 7 sacks or something? It was something ridiculous. That should never happen at LSU. Roster management always wins out, and LSU missed. And it could end up costing Brian Kelly his job. $53 million or not for him, it is on the table. So it's a crazy world we're in college football. Roster management's where it starts, folks. Thank you once again for checking out the Portal Podcast. We're going to be breaking down a whole bunch of teams more in depth, kind of like I did with the LSU situation, Wisconsin, Indiana, LSU, Auburn, you name it, programs across the country. Going to be talking about them right here each and every day, 3 a.m. for the audio upload Eastern time and 5 a.m. for the YouTube. And on Sundays, I try to do a podcast like this in the middle of the day too. So everybody have a good one. We will see you again soon right here on the Portal Podcast.